a happy 316 day to the gentleman joining me now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. Not only is he the man behind the Big Audio Nightmare, the Mid-Atlantic Championship podcast, and the Wrestling News, but you hear him weekdays with Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer Live, and I'll preach it till the cows come home. He is the voice of reason for that very fine program. It is Mike Sempervive. Follow him on Twitter at Sempervive. Mike, you do this thing when you host solo where you crack open the Red Bull for the ASMR kids. Since it is 316 day, I was just at the grocery store, which those of you in Austin, HEB at Palmer and McNeil, and they sure enough, the Broken Skull Lager. So for those ASMR fans, there we go. Happy 316 day to you.
Happy 316. Thank God you stepped up to the plate. I have the Cherry Lime body armor for hydration, which is amazing because I'm not an athlete. But if I knew it was going to be that kind of party, I would have stepped up to the plate a little bit more. So I'm glad you did at least, sir. Thank you.
Well, it was just a chance. I was walking down that aisle and saw it, and I said, "Oh, it's as if it was speaking to me." So.
See, I just came off doing Wrestling Observer Live, so there's a lot harder substances I need to get through that with Brian Alvarez every day. You say I'm the voice of reason. He makes it very easy. Trust me.
Well, he does. I mean, he really does. So, let's start off with what's happening in WWE right now as we are about 2.5 weeks away from WrestleMania. First, we have finally starting to hear about Hall of Fame inductees, Rey Mysterio and the Great Muta to be inducted into this year's class of the WWE Hall of Fame. Interesting that Great Muta never wrestled in WWE. Now he did wrestle in WCW, of course, and back in the NWA days with Sting and such. But what a career he's had. Wrapped it up earlier this year with his bye-bye match with Shinsuke Nakamura, and then with Naito, and then the right after that wrestling Masahiro Chono. Rey Mysterio is a little more curious. He's a Hall of Famer for sure, but does this seem to indicate maybe Rey Mysterio is heading towards at least semi-retirement?
I would say so for sure. And I think it probably also is a reflection on how they view the Hall of Fame this year. It is after SmackDown. You don't have to sell any tickets for it. They seem to have their attention focused on other things that week and that weekend, where I'm not saying that the Hall of Fame is way on the back burner or anything like that. Obviously, it's a big deal, but it feels as though they're using Rey Mysterio going in as an active competitor to maybe not only honor him because he is a foot out the door. I mean, just naturally, he's a foot out the door at this point in his life, in his career, at his age, in his condition. It can't help but be. But are they doing this also so they can finally Dominic pushes him too far and he finally puts hands on his son, which sets up a match for Saturday or Sunday? That's what it feels like. We're seeing Great Muta being inducted, who was, as you mentioned, was never in WWE. But the funny part is they own almost all of his Western Hemisphere life. Puerto Rico, the little bit of time he spent there, they own that now. They bought that from the Colones. The time he spent in World Class, they own that. They have that. Obviously, with the Great Muta persona, they have that. The only thing they don't have is the time that he spent in Impact. And they obviously did a focus on that a couple of weeks ago on their show when he retired, so they had a feature on him. So, it's funny that they could probably put on one hell of a documentary and do a big thing about him. I just don't believe that they will, which is kind of a waste for this. But then again, the Hall of Fame is weird this year. There's been talk about Batista. and there's talk about Stacy Keibler. Batista makes the most sense. Even if you have to do this now at the last minute, you're in Hollywood. That only makes sense to do. But then again, if you're looking at this where we have Rey Mysterio, we have Stacy Keibler, and we have Great Muta in the span of an hour after SmackDown, maybe that's enough for them and they're completely okay with it.
You may be right. And yeah, there's been the talk about much smaller class this year. So, if it's 3 or 4, that's okay. And those names, I think, Hall of Fame worthy. So we will see it. And you're right. I do think we could see some sort of like advancement of the Ray versus Dom angle, whether it's Dominic, attacks him on the stage or whatever, that finally sets up that match at WrestleMania. So, I guess that makes sense. We have had a few matches that are made official. One of those, Edge and Finn Balor in Hell in a Cell. And we have heard about the fact that they wanted to take away the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view and make that just a once in a while special match again. And so this makes sense. Now, if you listen to the talk around the campfire, the rumor and innuendo, there has been a little bit of whispering about Finn Balor bringing back the Demon Persona. I think that's a horrible idea because I think that the Demon Persona invokes a babyface reaction, and Finn Balor right now is a heel. But just give me your thoughts on this match, on what we will see at Mania with Edge and Finn, and just like I said, just give me your thoughts.
I hope he doesn't bring it back because I like the path that he's on right now. And as you mentioned, not only is that more of a babyface thing, I just don't think enough time has passed. And I like what he's doing right now, and I like where he's firmly entrenched with that group. I love the idea of not having a themed pay-per-view for Hell in a Cell. I hate theme pay-per-view. I shouldn't say that. I dislike most of the theme pay-per-views because you end up having to book yourself into it, and you have time. And always the one we bring up on Observer Live is CM Punk and Ryback, where it's like you have the cage versus the title, the streak versus the title, because that's what you kind of booked yourself into, and you're in Hell in a Cell, and it's like it didn't need that, but that was the show that month, so that's what they did. I like having it for big matches. This is a little bit of a put on, but Edge sells it because he's, we've had attacks on his wife, and you believe it for WrestleMania, so it works. I hope it now goes away after that for a while, and then they can break it out towards the end of the year, at the beginning of next year, whenever they actually need it for something intense. And I love that idea. It's like, bringing War Games up to the main roster, unless you're doing the bloodline against Owens and, Zayn and Cody and whoever it's going to be. Don't do it. There's no reason to do it. So if you have something that's worth it, do it. Same thing when it comes to, Money in the Bank's a little bit of a different story. I get that one, but all of these types of deals, to me, stipulations are, having theme pay-per-views is one thing, but when it comes to these, stipulation matches, that's a different story.
Yeah, I think you're right. You just mentioned Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn. We're seeing this it feels like a slow build. Kevin Owens, he wants to fight the bloodline by himself, doesn't want help from Sammy, doesn't even want help from Cody Rhodes. And we saw Monday night, he has the match with Solo Sikoa, the street fight, ends up, with the Usos interfering, and they basically beat him up. So, my mind immediately goes to, okay, you got 2.5 weeks. Is that enough time to pull the trigger on Kevin and Sammy versus Usos for the tag titles? Or are they going to go a different route?
I think it's enough time. If they want to go a different route, they absolutely can do that too. But to me, you could do it an hour before the show if you really wanted to, because you're going to have a wrapped audience, not only there, but the viewers at home too. I mean, it's WrestleMania. People are going to be a little bit more forgiving, and they're in better moods, and they're all jacked up, and some of the senses go out the window. So absolutely you can. I wouldn't wait, really past, I would say Monday, but to me, you can plant enough seeds. I would really start it up on Friday, to be honest with you. But if they want to wait till Monday, go ahead and do that. But like, I would really crank it up next week and make sure that people kind of know it's coming. At the very least, I don't know how you do it or how they're going to have the whole thing play out where he actually just finally says, okay, we're going to finally do this together. But, that's them waiting this long has been because the storyline has been that good and you're able to pull it off. So I think it's going to be on SmackDown, but I wonder, because both shows could use it. You know what I'm saying? Both. It's going to be a big rating. It's going to be a big moment. It's probably going to be a big spike. So it'll be interesting to see. But if it's not this Friday, probably on Monday.
And I think you're right. And, and I think they could go till SmackDown next week. I think if you wait until the week of, I think then you're kind of you're hurrying it a little bit. And it's kind of weird to say that because this has been such a long-term
I think you got fans just going like, all right, come on, we know this is coming. Let's just give it to us now.
Yeah, let's do it. So Gunther is going to defend the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. We don't know against who yet. They had the 5-way last week. Drew McIntyre and Sheamus get simultaneous pins, which was kind of weird, but okay. So now we're going to have the two of them face off with the winner getting the title. Convince me that this isn't going to end up in a triple threat.
I can't. It's got to be, right? I mean, it's got to be multiple people. It's got to be Sheamus and Drew in there. I mean, the only way it's not is if they have Drew and Sheamus square off. Drew wins. Sheamus is pissed about that because, again, you can play it in any sort of way where it's an accidental thing. Sheamus, Drew hits the ref accidentally and somebody hits Sheamus and whatever it is. You can do it in a way where you can come out of this if you want to do Gunther and Cody, or something like that to give you a break from the bloodline. If Cody wins at Mania, and then you could do, even though we've seen it a million times, do Drew and Sheamus for the IC title. There's a couple of different ways you can play it. Although I'm not sold on Sheamus or Gunther losing that title, to be honest with you, especially in a triple threat at Mania. To me, unless you got something really heavy for him, why take the title off of him? Just to have him chase it again, or just to have him out there lingering? I don't know.
And you're right. And that, like I said, especially if they, assuming they do make it a triple threat, it seems like it would be even more likely that Gunther retains, because I think if you had either Drew or Sheamus in a singles match, then I could see maybe taking it off. So you just mentioned Cody, and it's it's kind of like, this is kind of like football off season when we get into silly season. So they've been telling this story since Royal Rumble. Well, actually right before it. Cody needs to finish the story. He needs to win. He wants to win the title for his father, be the first Rhodes to be a world champion in WWE. And it has felt like that's what's going to happen. And now, as we get close, starting to hear those, they theorize, well, what if Roman retains? If that happened, I think we could all assume Vince is back in the chair. And B, I think it would do some pretty serious damage to fans' faith, I would say, in the product. What do you think?
What good does it do to keep the title on Roman? For what? To chase Bruno's record? To hit 1,000 days. What does that mean? What does it mean? I don't like that idea at all, and I think part of it. I'm not saying it's planted. I won't go into conspiracy theories, but I think sometimes when the answer is so obvious, people want to come up with ways to go, no, that's not it. And it's wrestling. You already didn't give them Sammy because, again, it's part of that whole thing about, working people and getting people almost there. And then, but then get them back up again because Cody's that guy this time around. If you don't do it, what does that mean? What did you accomplish? Who does that help? It doesn't help Cody, it doesn't help Sammy, it doesn't help Roman. I mean, okay, he beat Cody. This isn't real. These aren't knockouts on a list of yeah, he went through Frazier and Ali and Foreman and Lyle and whoever. It's like it's time for Cody to win. And it's time for now either Roman to go away for a little bit after Mania, to reset this whole to continue the story. It doesn't go away just because Cody wins. It doesn't end anything. You just need to now write a new chapter, and it's time to have a new protagonist in this story. There needs to be somebody else and some new challenges and some new options brought into this mix. It's not going to eliminate Cody and Sammy, or it's not going to eliminate Cody and Roman, So to me, it's just going to further and enhance and help the story if he wins, because if he doesn't and Roman wins again, then what?
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of Braun Breaker or Carmelo or Grayson Waller or you name it. There's a lot of guys in NXT who could come up to the main roster. None of them can come up and challenge Roman Reigns and be effective right off the bat. There's no free agent out there that can come in and go, we want to see him against Roman Reigns. There's nobody else left in the company. We've seen him against Lashley. We've seen him against Lesnar. What else what else is there after damn near 800 days or however many days it is at this point? It's time for somebody else to have it and put a new twist on everything.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he hasn't even broken Hogan's record,
No,
much less reached Bruno.
Yeah. It's in the era we're in. It's amazing he got to this point, and I'm glad that they did it. I think that meant something. And I know, look, it was not his fault they didn't have challengers, and they should be very happy that their fan base was so receptive to multiple Bobby Lashley attempts, to multiple Drew McIntyre attempts, to multiple Kevin Owens attempts. But it shows, they have faith in those people. Bobby Lashley, because he never lost to anybody else. I mean, again, when you add layers to people, AEW, it helps, sometimes. Look, that was a shot to WWE too, again, sometimes they back into these things, but it shows you why those things actually matter. So you can go back to that and people will believe it. It's like, as much as I wanted Barry Windham to win the NWA title, I knew he probably wasn't going to do it, but because he was always treated in a certain way when he wasn't against Flair, then when it was his time again, goddamn, let's go. That stuff matters. And that's where I think if the bloodline, and this is where Vince not being in the way, if that's actually the case, let's hope that it stays that way. When he's not in the mix, you can start doing those things. And that's what I hope Triple H can do more of. We'll see, but this bloodline is a great example of it because so far anybody that's touched it is still gold right now, whether it be Solo, who's going to have a big year this year, the Usos, Sammy, Kevin, Cody, everybody is aces in this whole deal right now, not counting Paul Heyman, obviously.
Well, and you look at how they have worked Cody and Sammy together the last couple of weeks, where there was the fear of Sammy taking away from Cody's vibe, from taking away from Cody's reaction. They've been able to work that to where both guys are still hot, still at the top. They're still cheering both of them. The people want to see Cody win. So it's kind of one of those things, kind of like what you said. The solution is so obvious. And I think there might be a case of some people are thinking back. They've got that old WWE fear from when Vince was there, and they're just projecting it onto this. So
and look, Triple H has got to prove he's not the old man, or he's got to prove the old man's not there, because we've seen baby faces win at Mania. We saw the Yes Movement be a great example of that. Within a month, he and Kane are, fighting backstage, and he's getting crushed with pallets, and it's like, and then he ended up getting hurt, which was the best. Take that back. I want to say the best thing that could have, it was the best thing that could have happened to get him out of that scenario, because otherwise it just would have kept going with the spooky and the nonsense and all that. Rey Mysterio, Kofi, you can go to a zillion examples of it. So
yeah,
again, we'll see what they do, but I am, again, without Vince knowingly being there every week, which he has not been. Obviously, he made his, I'm just happened to be here appearance with Cena, and we've seen some things, Omos and Lesnar. We've seen some things that make me not feel good, but for now, I'm going to give Triple H the benefit of the doubt and hope that everything continues to move along without Vince there, so we can actually make some progress and actually have some things make sense again.
One of those other, you mentioned Brock and Omos, one of the other matches that is allegedly still on the card is, or at least is, Bobby Lashley versus Bray Wyatt. Now, Bray Wyatt has not been seen in the last couple of weeks. We have heard the reports that it is a physical issue, but nothing has been said as to whether he would be ready for WrestleMania. We haven't even seen a hint. We haven't seen, Uncle Howdy showing up or anything like that. And, and I'll be honest, if it's a straight up wrestling match between Bray and Bobby, fine. But I think you and I both know there's going to be some sort of spooky wookie, which does nobody any favors. Let's take a look at that match at the Rumble with him and LA Knight. Now, luckily, LA Knight is such a good character that he comes out of there and still a pretty strong heel character. So, give me your thoughts. Are we going to see Lashley versus Bray, or are we going to have to find another opponent for Bobby?
This may be a case where the spooky may be a benefit if there's something wrong with Bray where he can't physically go. If you wanted to do some funhouse spooky, you could, if you wanted to. You can have Bo go out there as Uncle Howdy, and you have a group of guys, and Lashley's got to fight him off. I don't know. What I was hoping out of all this was we were going to get a whole lot of spooky, but when we got to the match, it was going to be just two big guys thumping. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was the best case scenario, was have all this nonsense leading into it, but when you got into it, it is a new, different Bray, as far as his character wrestling, or facing Lashley. But I don't know. I really don't. I don't feel good about it because I'm a Lashley fan, and the way this whole thing came about was crazy, and the fact that they're going with that as the match is crazy, and how they've been building it up with the, again, it's that stuff that I don't for the most part like almost at all. When it comes to Bray Wyatt, the only time I've liked Bray's craziness was the Cena thing, which was so ridiculous to me it was sublime. It was because it wasn't a part of it was like it was a one-off little universe, literal universe thing, and that was it. And kind of like that's, I would rather have that out of Bray. With like every 6 months with a character or something that's completely out of nowhere and not melded into the show and melded into Bobby Lashley, who was just feuding with Brock Lesnar. So again, I don't know. I don't feel good about any of it, but who the hell knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I'm there with you, and I'm a Bobby Lashley fan myself. I want, and I would love to see it if it ends up being just two big men going at each other. But again, we will see. You know, we don't talk a lot of NXT, but this is kind of a odd deal. Roxanne Perez, the NXT Women's Champion, she had the match with Meiko Satomura. She retains and then collapses in the ring, and they stretch her out. Booker T follows, all that good stuff. And then Shawn Michaels comes out, this past Tuesday, says, she's out of the hospital, but her health is still in question. And so we possibly will have to crown a new champion, which said possibly, and that was like, what? They had the qualifying matches. You got Gigi Dolan and Zoe Stark that qualified. It's going to be a ladder match at Stand and Deliver. At least as of right now, they got a third spot. Is this going to be some sort of deal where Roxanne comes in at the last minute, says, "Hey, wait, I'm still the champion. I'm gonna be in this ladder match." Is that what we're working on? And if that's the case, doesn't this feel a bit convoluted?
I have no idea what story they're telling, and it's because, is there something actually wrong with Roxanne that is not necessarily physical? Is it and again, now that takes it into a realm where it's like now you really are speculating and trying to literally get inside somebody's head, but like, is that it? I mean, they brought up a sports psychiatrist because they did want to make sure that you knew, even in storyline, for as heavy and dramatic as Booker T played it, she's fine. There were no issues with. So to me, I think it's a storyline. To me, it feels like there was a plans change thing where they went, okay, let's go in this direction. On that same show earlier on, Tiffany Stratton stood up and said, or sat down in her chair and said, "I'm the number one contender. I'm going to get the winner of whoever wins that match." She's over here. She's not, her name has not been mentioned as part of the ladder deal or as part of the contendership. So it's like, what it's feeling like to me is they may have had an idea, and then when JC Jane got hurt, it was like, okay, we're not going to do Gigi and JC in a gimmick match at Mania that weekend. Maybe now, okay, we're going to add Gigi to the mix for a three-way ladder match because she fits. If you look at the character of Tiffany Stratton against Roxanne Perez, against Gigi, when you look at all three of them, completely different. So I think that's a dynamic that could play very well. And maybe that's what they'd like to do. Maybe I don't know. It just really seemed weird because she's not hurt. And if she's not hurt and she's still doing classes and things like that at the PC, it's like, well, okay, then again, is this, if it's not emotional, if it's not mental, it's got to be an angle. So it feels and smells like an angle to set up a match, and I just don't know. I just don't know if maybe 3 weeks ago, if this was the plan. It just doesn't feel that way. It feels like it was just, weirdly kind of like crushed together there. The whole thing, the statement, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, you know, if it's an angle, like I said, it feels like a really long walk for a drink of water.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I don't know. I mean, and I hope what if there is truly something, wrong, then I wish all the best to Roxanne. She's a fantastic young lady, and just a fantastic in ring worker, and just a star in the making.
So beyond her years, man.
Oh
I mean,
man,
having her on Observer Live, and this was a couple years in, and we had already heard, and I'd already heard, as
yeah,
much closer know, how grounded she was, and how she always, again, very wise behind her years, and just very advanced for her years. So I hope everything's okay, because boy, is she perfect, and her, she's just got everything except for size, and in a world where size matters, she's actually, that's going to benefit her, because she's got everything else that you need brought to the table, especially what she can do inside the ring. So yeah, the world, man, they have some women in NXT and in the WWE system that, man, if they all come along, they're gonna be running. They're still gonna be dominating the industry for a while. Obviously, people are gonna come from Stardom, your Tony Storms and people who have gone through their, there have been a plenty, Rhea Ripley's and Nikki Storms and all that. But the ones that they're developing, they're women that, again, well, the NIL system's a different story. But as far as the women, the women that are coming into the PC, that are specifically coming into wrestle after school, damn, they got a bunch of them.
yeah, absolutely. Let's switch gears to AEW. Thankfully get to do this on a Thursday, so got to watch Dynamite last night. And Dynamite, it felt a little kind of like a reset. You had MJF come out for his rebar mitzvah, and he gets confronted by his fellow pillars with Sammy Guevara, Jungle Boy Jack Perry, and Darby Allin. They all decided they want a title shot. You have the debut of Taya Valkyrie in AEW. But it felt like I said, it felt like they felt like what it used to be after WrestleMania in WWE. They reset everything. And I got that feeling with Dynamite.
The good stuff was good, and the bad stuff I thought was pretty bad last night. But I actually liked the concept of the opening segment, because they don't do 20-minute promo openings. That's a WWE thing, and I know some people recoiled on them doing that, but when you don't do them all the time, I think they're good. I think it's a good thing. And part of that was taken up by MJF going out there and showing his ass and doing the Reba Mitzvah, which obviously set up the other pillars coming out. And I thought that was really good. And I thought that was a good idea to kind of reset things. Now, where I thought it went sideways was a lot of the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy Guevara, oh, anybody thought I was going to come in here and be Chris Jericho's job boy and do that? Wait a second. You're a pillar. That's how you've been portrayed this whole time. Talk about that more. Talk about maybe the fact that you were named a pillar, but people didn't really think of you that way. Yeah, they said it, but then they thought I was going to be Chris Jericho's job boy, and I ran through people and I won 3 titles, and I did my thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with Darby. I think if Darby was the only one who said that to throw the shots back at MJF, I think it would have been good. But I think AEW is, they really rely on that too much, and I think they put too much stock and effort into that stuff. And I know it pops a certain segment, and I think you do have to live in reality, and the fact that there are lines to be blurred. I think what they're doing with Hobbs, taking a real situation with Wardlow and his vehicle and turning that into an angle, I think that's a good way to do these things. but this whole deal with always mentioning WWE, always having this land of the giant over there that people want to go to, people, even you, man, can it be about the wrestling? That was my big thing with the lead up to MJF and Bryan Danielson. Every week we get a goddamn origin story out of somebody. It's like, can part of this story just be because I want to win that title? I want to win this match, make this money, and be the champion of my profession. Like, I know what it is. I know the era I'm in, but damn, find a balance. You need to find a better balance. That's what they're missing there.
Yeah, I'm there with you. It feels like there are they do a little too much insider baseball. Sammy's promo, and look, I called some of Sammy's matches on the indie circuit. He wrestled here in Austin quite a bit, and and I know Sammy, and I count him as a friend. That the promo he cut felt a little too babyface, honestly. And I know you still have to differentiate yourself from MJF, but like you said, the being Chris Jericho's bump boy and all that good stuff. Yeah, I'm not crazy about it.
There was a better way to say it, especially under the circumstances of, again, to me, there's a bigger portion of the fan base that's got a fatigue on that sort of stuff than I think gets expressed, because a lot of those people don't express it. They just go, I'm gonna find something else to do or whatever. You know what I mean? And I think you got to watch that malaise from that base, because it's hard to get them back. It's hard to re-energize and remotivate them again.
Something I was thinking about the other day, where AEW has been, their numbers, they're getting numbers, but they're not as high they've been, and especially on Friday nights and all that. And I'm wondering, and I'd love for you to chime in on this. I'm wondering if if there is a little bit of those fans being drawn away by WWE and the Bloodline. The Bloodline story is so good and so well done. Maybe that's pulling some of those disgruntled WWE fans that are watching AEW. They're getting back into WWE, and maybe some of the again, the insider baseball is like, let me go back to watching stories.
I think it is more a matter of WWE's base being re-energized because of this story, as opposed to, because I think there are people that they only have enough. It's like it's like being a huge fan of the NFL, and you like other sports, but like the NHL and the NBA, like maybe you're on one for a while, and then maybe you're on the other one for a while, and then maybe you're on some other winter sport for a while or something like that, where I think there are people like that where they only have X amount of time for their wrestling. And if AEW, they're the new thing, oh, cool, this is great. And then they got out of that, and, oh, they heard the Bloodline was happening or whatever. So they tuned back. I think there are people like that, but I just think right now it's WWE atrophied to such a point, during the pandemic. And we saw what their lowest of lows was,
Mm-hmm.
like 1.2 million, when it came to Raw. So it's like, they couldn't have bottomed out anymore, or much more than that. And I just think that those fans came back. I think, post pandemic viewing behaviors have changed. I think a lot goes into that. And I just think they, again, things broke right with Cody coming back during this time when this thing was humming, and he looked like he was going to be back at a good time for Rumble in the Mania season. And that's even better because the Bloodline thing is hot and Sammy's hot and never. I just think it's an issue of that. And I just don't think, when it comes to some of the AEW people that have dropped off, it's, to me, it's their own hand. It's not what WWE has done. It's just that they're not giving you enough. What they only have X amount of hot feuds or hot star. I mean, who are their hot stars? Who are their big needle movers? How many hot feuds do they have at a time that you can be that you're really heavily invested in? And I know some people, well, all of them. Apparently, that's not the case.
Yeah, you're right. It's not. Um, we had an interesting cliffhanger at the end of Dynamite. So you had the triple threat for the trios titles with House of Black, the Elite, and Jericho Appreciation Society, and it was Jericho, Sammy, and Daniel. What was his last name?
Garcia.
Garcia. Thank you. Oh, stupid brain farts. Anyway, so House of Black retains. It was a great match. Several teases of Kenny and Chris being in the ring together and all that good stuff. So then, you start seeing some brawling after the match, and then here comes Blackpool Combat Club and Dark Order. They were fighting in the back, and now they're spilling out in the ring. And all of a sudden, Heyman finds himself in the ring by himself, and there's Moxley and Claudio and Wheeler Yuta they're in the ring, they're ready to pounce, and then all of a sudden they back up, and it's because Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks are standing behind Hangman. I know they've teased it before, and then they left it. Does this feel like they could reunite Hangman Adam Page back into the Elite?
Absolutely. It's going to happen at some point. It's just a matter of when you decide to do that. Do you do it because Kenny's being a prick and, then the Young Bucks leave Kenny hanging, and look at Hangman as they did way back when? And, there's a zillion ways they can do it. This is one thing that they know with their fan base when it comes to the big emotional big hug, come on, you kidding me? It's like, are we going to get Ibushi and Omega back together? Come on, of course we are. Are we going to get Hangman back with his friends again? Everybody back at the bar, back on their horses? Of course we are. It's just a matter of when they go ahead and pull that trigger and when they want to go ahead and do it. How do you do you turn at that point? Do you turn Evil Uno? Are they heel on Page? So there's there's things that end up, fantasy booking coming off of it. But the bottom line is, yeah, absolutely, we're going to see them back together. It doesn't make any sense not to. Again, why would you not give your fans that? Again, you can draw it out for a while, but then again, why would you not give your fans that? That's what they want,
Yeah, I think you're right. The All Atlantic title has been leveled up, as they kept leveled up. They said that about 4,000 times. So it's now the AEW International title.
Yes, it's a nicer way of saying we screwed up the first time when we named the dumb thing, and we're idiots and we're changing it now.
Exactly.
This doesn't make any sense either. If you think about it, is the international title above the world heavyweight title? And if not, why? Why is it? Is there going to be an interstellar title? Are we going to have an intergalactic title? What are we talking about here?
Well, that would be like the universal title. The universe is bigger than the world, right?
Well, that's it. That's what Bill Watts said. That's why he was the Universal Wrestling Federation.
There you go. And Orange Cassidy retained, which I thought was an interesting choice. I think, a lot of folks were expecting, Jeff Jarrett to finally get his first gold in the AEW, but they decided to keep it on Orange. Did they miss the boat on that?
No, I'll tell you why, because I love Jeff Jarrett, but Jeff Jarrett's piece of gold is going to be if they can get these AEW house shows kicked off. That's where he's going to earn his gold there. I love seeing Jeff Jarrett on TV. I love the team of him and Jay Lethal. They are the ultimate love them or hate them team, because there are two guys that either you have loved them or really liked watching them throughout their careers, or you don't. There seems to be no middle ground, for the most part, because even if you're one hand, you go, yeah, Jay Lethal's a good, good hand. It won't take long before somebody's pointing out what they don't like about him. Jeff Jarrett, the best example of that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh God. But I think they're perfect. And I think he has been used perfectly. Those acclaimed matches were really good with Lethal and with Jarrett, and they're the right guys for them to be working with, doing those types of matches. That old school thing. Look how good Cassidy was with Jarrett last night. I mean, to me, that was great because there were so many people that I think just knew Jarrett was going to win. And of course, he's Jeff Jarrett. He's like Lazarus. How he survives and ends up winning a championship everywhere. How does he do it? And he didn't do it. And, I thought that was a smart thing to do. You could always go back and do it again if you wanted to. But I think Jeff Jarrett being used in the way that he is, pissing people off just enough, but then remembering why he's there, that's, to me, look, the era of Lethal and Jeff Jarrett at the top of a wrestling promotion. I'm sorry, in my world, it wouldn't hurt my feelings, but Jay Lethal's not going to be the world champion anymore. He was that for a long time, years ago. Now it's time for him to make other people better. Make sure he keeps his credibility like Jarrett, but there to make everybody else better. Again, Cassidy, a great example of a great match last night.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Or at least for what it was. I mean, again, if you don't like Orange Cassidy, it is what it is. But you saw, to me, that was a much better worked Orange Cassidy match than you'll see with a lot of other guys.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm trying to remember. Did I mention to you the possible Jarrett Dustin Rhodes rivalry? Have I mentioned this to you?
I don't think so.
So when Jeff Jarrett first, came on board to AEW, his first promo, he, in his promo, he mentions that he is the last outlaw. Well, I can tell you that the Natural has taken issue with this. At least he has told me that he has taken issue with this because he feels like he is the last outlaw. And so he would like to see a match between himself and Jeff Jarrett to determine who is the true last outlaw, I think. What would you think of Dustin Rhodes versus Jeff Jarrett?
TK Stack Money, give this match to me, please. Better, you know what? Don't give this match to me. You know what? Dustin, you give this match to me. You make all the money off of it, at least as much as you can, because you got to pay Jarrett and a bunch of other people probably too, but do it in Texas. It would be great. Oh my God. I would love to see it no matter where it happens. I would love to see it because you got two old pros that can still go because we've seen them still go. How could it not be great? You have a backstory that you could fall back on. Do you want to go to USWA stuff? Do you want to do, again, there's so much you can do. Hey, you could even bring it back to Dusty and Dustin pushing Ric Flair and Jeff Jarrett's head into that ass, because Ric Flair said he wasn't kissing that ass, but it was a kiss my ass match in WCW, and Dusty loaded the ass up with burritos, and those two guys kissed their ass. Yes, this is what I remember out of pro wrestling sometimes, folks. But I just think it's great because I love both of those guys. I mean, I grew up with Jeff Jarrett and Dustin Rhodes. I remember him when when both of them were essentially rookies. Definitely Dustin. Coming up, and it's wild. I mean, it's been a wild ride. So I love seeing them in the mix, and I would love to see them go out against each other in a kick-ass match. I mean, build it up. I mean, honest to God. You could do one in AEW. You could do them in a couple of places if you wanted to. Do one in Texas. Do one in Tennessee if you wanted to. Have a couple of them. Have a bull rope. I would love to see a little series between those guys. I don't care where it is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it'd be a fantastic bit of business between those two. So he is Mike Sempervive. Catch him on the Big Audio Nightmare on the Mid-Atlantic Championship Podcast. Catch him on the Wrestling News and weekdays with Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer Live. Mike, as always, such a pleasure to chop it up with you. I appreciate everything, man. All the best to you, and we will talk again soon.
Stu, I appreciate it as always, my friend. And you know what's funny you don't hear today? All you Houston fans, and I'm sorry, you Texas Ranger fans that heard all those Mets fans make fun of DeGrom. Funny, you can't hear them today for some reason. I don't know what it is. Damnedest
I
thing, though, ain't it?
I know it's crazy like that. Thanks, Mike.
Yes, sir.